Okay, this is a very sketchy setup that I have going on here. I'm here alone at school. It's kind of scary. So I hope this goes okay. I'm going to teach y'all this first lesson. This is supposed to be your Tuesday lesson, describing changes in ecosystems. So I hope this is page 152. Oh gosh, is this the right lesson? Tuesday, yeah. 152 through 160. No. Oh, is this the right lesson? Let me see. Tuesday, 152 through 156. Yes. Okay, so 152. So this one's going to be starting with gradual changes. All right, where is it? I hope you've all been good to your sub. Okay, gradual changes. So, where is it? Oh, why? There we go. All right, gradual changes to ecosystems are going on all the time in every ecosystem. For example, changes may take place slowly in a pond or a lake. Sediment builds up over time in a body of water, just like the Mississippi River. You know how the Mississippi River has changed its course over time, and it changes. That's how we have the lake here in Lake Providence, because of the Mississippi River has changed its course. It's an oxbow lake. So, um, sediment buildup also leads to natural eutrophication. During this process, nutrients from plants and rocks and minerals dissolve in the pond water. They help plants and algae grow. When the plants and algae die, they fall to the bottom of the pond. Over time, dead plant and algae material build up, and organisms living in the pond ecosystem will change in response to the change. Fish, amphibian, and insects that live in water will eventually move away to find another pond, or predators may eat them. Eventually, all populations living on the pond ecosystem will be affected by the change. Gradual changes also take place as glaciers melt, when logs rot, and climates change. Even a relatively small increase in temperatures can have a widespread effect on ecosystems. I know every once in a while the lake gets this really funky thing that happens to it. I don't know if it's a rise in temperatures. I don't know if it's the wind or something about it every few years, but something happens to it, and all of a sudden it causes one certain type of fish to die in the lake. And they all wash to the shore, and this horrible smell, until all those fish bodies eventually sink. First they float, and then they sink, and the smell is horrible, but it's an ecological change, and it's a natural thing. It just happens. Okay, this is sediment that's building up in this little pond right here. It's just natural things dying over time. We know why sediment builds up in our lake. It's from the agriculture, the farms and stuff that are washing away in the ditches and building up in the bottom of the ponds. You see, here's the water right here. Here's the vegetation along the sides. Here's your happy little deer, whatever. That's a nice buck. Davis, I'm sure you'd like to shoot that one. It might be a little small for you. Anyway, and the natural sediment that builds up along the bottom, all the dead things down there. Okay, so over a long period of time, this pond filled up with sediment and changed into a meadow. So it got so much gunk at the bottom that it eventually built up and built up and built up, that it got so shallow that it just kind of filled in. Okay, so you can see that it was once this deep, and now it's a meadow. But I bet it's a wetland. Okay, that's kind of how wetlands are. It's always going to be kind of marshy and wet. Okay, so choose the correct words to complete the statements. And I'm going to pause, and I can hear you even from all the way over here. I can hear what you're saying. The effects of the change to the pond will most likely be, and I see in your book that you can circle these, most likely be, as the pond ecosystem. I'm just going to choose one. I don't know if it's correct or not. as the pond ecosystem changes to a meadow. The living and non-living parts of the ecosystem will, I want you to use that one. Let's see if it's correct. Ooh, it was not. Let's see what the correct one was. Okay, so now you choose, you write in circle the correct ones on your book. So the effects of the change to the pond will most likely be long-term. So that pond is not going to go back to the way it was unless somebody comes and scoops out everything that was in there. The living and non-living parts of the ecosystem will change. All the fish and stuff that were in there, they're dead. All right. Forest fires, tornadoes, volcanic eruptions, and floods can all cause a sudden change to an ecosystem. For example, if a river floods, it may burst its banks. When the Mississippi River floods, it floods its banks. Sometimes that's good. It leaves sediment and deposits and makes the farmland around it more, it leaves it more fertile. Sometimes it's bad because it could dump a lot of sand in an area. Its banks may erode and cause the river water to become too muddy or too fast flowing for fish or other organisms to survive. Living things that depend on the fish for food may be negatively affected because their food source is gone. Okay? Sudden changes happen quickly and can kill or remove several populations of organisms from an ecosystem all at once. Okay, so this can be local or widespread. An event that causes changes to the living or non-living parts of an ecosystem is called a disturbance. Some disturbances are natural processes. Other disturbances are caused by humans when they damage or remove parts of an ecosystem. Y'all cause disturbances in here all the time. I'm just saying that. Okay, so some of these are natural. What do you think might have caused this? Could it have been like a tornado? I mean, we can drive down the interstate and you can see the exact path where a tornado has torn through an area by these broken, look, this tree looks like it's twisted, and I'm sure you've all seen areas like that where it's actually twisted the trees down. And this was, or even a hurricane in South Louisiana. This photo shows two different ecosystems after sudden changes. Ash, gases, and lava flow from a volcanic eruption affect the area around a volcano. Lava can flow about 8 meters per second. This forest fire caused several changes in the forest habitat. A wildfire can travel about 3 meters per second. All right, so you're going to compare and contrast the two sudden changes shown in the photos. You're going to write your answer in the space provided. How are these two alike and how are they different? That's what compare and contrast means. You can pause the video to write your answers. This is on page 153. Pause the video and record your answers on page 153 on numbers 8 and 9. Pause. All right, moving on. Effects of changes in the ecosystem. Since each part of an ecosystem is interconnected, everything from the water, the food that's grown, which is the grass, anything that's a producer, everything is interconnected. If one part dies, it's going to be a chain reaction. It affects a larger ecosystem. What about a population that is removed for any reason? All the other species may fill in the gap left by the missing species, or it may not be replaced at all. Let's say all the frogs are removed from an area. Well, let's say that the snakes depended on those frogs to eat. Well, if it's a food web, could those snakes go eat something else? What about eating mice? Could they eat mice instead? Yes, they absolutely could. Suppose a disease killed one species of bee in an ecosystem. Bees are important pollinators in many ecosystems. In this ice storm, we had bees that totally wiped out lots of bees in this area. I know Tony Lensing has bees. My neighbor just chopped down a tree, and he had bees living in that tree. They all died. Wayne's cousin in Texas had tons of beehives, and the ice storm killed all of his beehives. So, and those were pollinators for lots of different areas. And so bees from other places are going to have to come in and take the place of those bees. Do you know they carry beehives in 18-wheeler trucks now? Carry them from one place to another? That's crazy. All right, so another bee species living in the same area might now have more food and living space. It could become the main pollinator in the area. But if the diseased bee species were the only bee species in the area, there may not be any other species to fill in the ecological role as pollinators. So the bees may not be replaced. Flowers and other plants would not be pollinated by bees. This flat would mean fewer insect pollinated plants would grow in the future. That means if apple trees were growing there, or orange trees, or something like that, they may not grow as many, or other things that had to be pollinated by bees. You may not have a huge crop of those things that year. There would be less food, such as seeds, fruits, and vegetables for animals that depend on insect pollinated plants. So there's, it's like the trickle effect, or the whatever effect. All right. Think about the swarm of locusts you saw at the beginning of the lesson. Is the swarm a change to a living or non-living ecosystem component? Is the change gradual or sudden? So after, okay, recovering. All right. After a disturbance, an ecosystem begins to recover. This is called succession. It's the beginning stages of a recovery. Let's say there's a forest fire. Okay, now your ecosystem is going to start with recovery. What's the first thing that's going to grow back after a forest fire? It's going to be something small. It's not going to be a tree. You're not going to have big deer come back after a forest fire. Where are they going to live? What are they going to eat? You're going to have your smallest things that grow back first. So succession is the order in which things grow back after a major event. Your pioneer species are going to come back first, okay? You think of a pioneer growing across country, they were the first ones to go. So you have your pioneer species begin to grow first. When a glacier starts, a glacier completely covers the land, and as it starts retreating, only bare rock remains. So a pioneer species like lichens start growing on rock to help form soil. Then you have smaller plants start returning. Then you have your little bitty animals that are going to start returning because they eat those things. And their poop starts helping to fertilize the soil. Okay? So then you start getting fertile soil again. Then you can start having bigger plants and grasses. And once you have bigger plants and grasses, you have places for things to hide, like your bigger animals. Okay, then you have biodiversity, and biodiversity gradually starts to happen. You have your small, tiny animals, your bigger animals, and then you can have your big food webs that start to happen. Okay, let's see. Analyze the rate of environmental change. Artificial eutrophication, that's a hard word to say, it really is, and I'm really thirsty. Results from pollution caused by humans. It happens when runoff from farm fertilizers, mining, or household waste adds large amount of nutrients to a body of water. When you see like a really weird color of water that looks like it should be a Sonic drink, that's what that is. The large amount of nutrients supports algae blooms. Population causes explosions of algae in the water. As excess algae die, oxygen from the water is used as the algae decomposes. The algae may also produce toxins that kill other living things. So this is kind of what happens to our middle pond. We can't have too many fish because of so much algae and stuff. So we're trying to find that delicate balance in the middle pond. More oxygen is used up as their bodies decay, and as a result, other organisms may not be able to live in the water. Way too much algae. All right. Moving on. Okay, you need to pause and answer questions 11 and 12. All right, exploration 2. Predicting changes to populations. An ecosystem disturbance can be caused by the introduction of a non-native species. Oh my goodness, we all know what those Asian carp and what they do in the river. They jump out of a boat and they can knock you flat out of a boat. Oh man, gray squirrels are not native to the United States. They're native to the eastern United States. They were introduced to several locations in the United Kingdom and Ireland. Oh, they jumped the pond. Okay. The species quickly adapted to their new forest ecosystems. The total population of gray squirrels in Europe has increased greatly since their introduction. So they're from the United States, but they went to Europe. Red squirrels are native to Europe and northern Asia. Gray squirrels are larger and more aggressive than red squirrels. So these little gray squirrels from America are more aggressive than the red squirrels I have over there. They eat larger variety of foods. They have fewer predators than red squirrels do. And as a result, which ones do you think are going to survive more? The gray squirrels took over much of the red squirrel's resources. So the red squirrel population decreased across Europe. This is the eastern gray squirrel. Has a huge diet, so it can eat nuts, flowers, fruits, seed bark, seeds, tree bark, fungi, frogs, eggs, and bird hatchlings. So it can eat anything, basically. Let's look at the red squirrel. Seeds, berries, young plant shoots, and bird eggs. So it doesn't have as big a variety to eat as this one. So this one's naturally going to be better equipped to handle all types of situations. If you run out of 5 types of food, guess what? You got more to choose from. This one does not. So this one's your survivor right here. So the introduction of gray squirrels to Europe had a negative impact on populations of red squirrels. Scientists also identified that gray squirrels negatively affect the populations of songbirds and spread disease, squirrel pox. Oh, that's horrible. Okay, to red squirrels. Gray squirrels also eat the bark from trees in the winter, causing the trees, you sorry little suckers, causing the trees to be more prone to disease. However, the presence of gray squirrels helped another species to rebound from the point of extinction. Well, that was good. All right, so the distribution of red and gray squirrels in Great Britain and Ireland. All right, so the red squirrels are in red. Great. Now this is England and Ireland right here, I believe. Is it? Yes. Great Britain and Ireland. All right, so where the Queen lives, right here. All right, this is the gray squirrel right here. Now remember, the gray squirrel is from America. So this was in 1945. See that the red squirrel controlled most of this area. By 2000, the old gray squirrel had taken over control. And by 2010, it had gone over into Ireland, and the poor little red squirrel doesn't have much control anymore. Poor little fella. On number 13, you need to describe the changes in the distribution of the red and gray squirrels from 1945. And I want you to tell me what's specific. What do you remember about the year 1945? You are correct. It is when World War II ended, to 2010. You can pause the video here and complete number 13 on page 155. And number 14. There is what you need to do. Go, go, go. Okay, so scientists determined that gray squirrels likely had a positive effect on the population of pine martens. Pine martens are weasel-like predators of squirrels. Pine martens were hunted to near extinction in the United Kingdom and Ireland in the early 20th century. Farmers and landowners considered the pest because they ate chickens and young lambs. Ooh! Since pine martens became a protected species in the 1980s, their numbers have grown. Researchers noted that pine martens prefer eating gray squirrels to red squirrels. So now they have something that will eat them. That's good. Gray squirrels are larger, slower, and spend more time on the ground. So the pine martens can catch the gray squirrels more easily. And with more food, the pine marten population in Ireland and Scotland have increased. And the rate of gray squirrel population has decreased. Now we need something in America that will eat the Asian carp. That would be awesome. So that was your lesson. I'm over and out. Y'all be good. Oh, man.